Hello, my name is Courtney Schutt, and this is my final presentation for my organizational behavior and leadership course. So, this presentation is a SWOT analysis from me observing Brahms from an organizational behavior and leadership perspective. Over several weeks, I observed operations in person, not as a customer, but as a consultant studying the workplace. The focus was on behaviors, communication, culture, teamwork, and leadership, and how those factors influence both the employees and the customers. All right, so the purpose of the project. Let's see here. So the purpose of this project is not to evaluate the food or its pricing, it's to connect what we have learned in this organizational behavior course with what actually happens inside of a business. Um, every restaurant has a culture, whether intentionally built or not, and that culture influences how employees interact, how leaders lead, how managers hire, how customers experience the brand as a whole. And this project helped highlight those connections in a real world setting. Right. Method. So to conduct this analysis, I visited Brahms multiple times and stayed long enough to observe routine moments, rushes, and slow periods. So no interviews were done and no questions were asked to staff members. It was just strictly observation. Seating was chosen to where I could see both the front and back of the house, and Brahms is unique in that it also has a grocery store element. So I opted out of observing the grocery store element because when they're in rush, they don't have anybody manning that area, and it wasn't very helpful to observe an empty space. So I saw both front and back of house of the food in preparation of the food, and I did that to understand workflow, interactions, and just overall view the environment in its natural state. So key areas observed. So I used course concepts as a guide to determine what to observe when I went into Brahms. This included communication patterns, leadership style, division of labor, teamwork and employee support, attitudes and job satisfaction, emotional tone in the workplace, and customer-facing performance. So instead of focusing on one moment or one team member, I looked for patterns that repeated throughout different visits. Brahms has several strengths that support productivity and efficiency. These strengths are foundational. They're the core of why the store runs effectively even during those high pressure moments like the lunch or the dinner rush. One of the biggest strengths that is um, I found was that the roles for the employees were clearly defined. Every person had a job and they stuck to it. So when organizations lack role clarity, employees often hesitate, double work tasks, or clash over duties. Brahms has minimized that risk, excuse me. And clear roles support efficiency, reduce conflict, and allow workers to stay focused instead of just guessing what to do next. Communication at Brahms was very tactical and short, especially when it mattered most, when they were super hectic and busy. Employees relied on concise verbal messages and nonverbal cues. They didn't pause to discuss things, they just moved. It showed me that they had a strong shared understanding and trust in each other's abilities. It resembled a well-practiced routine rather than just chaos. Strength number three. So whether it was morning or evening, busy or slow, the service remained consistent. Employees weren't overly warm or enthusiastic, but they were reliable in their job and their efforts. So in fast food, where employee turnover is high and training time is pretty low, consistent customer service is actually a major strength that I saw. It signals that employees understand expectations and can perform without constant supervision. Despite strong structure and efficiency, there were a couple noticeable weaknesses that affect employee motivation and long-term workplace culture. These issues don't disrupt daily function immediately, but become costly over time if not addressed. The shift manager focused mainly on directing and correcting, not so much on inspiring, developing, or supporting the employees. It was basically transactional leadership to a T. And transactional leadership is fine for maintaining order, but it doesn't build loyalty or motivation in those employees. So, when employees are treated purely as task performers, they focus only on the minimum required of them instead of giving their best effort. Right. I did not observe recognition of good performance, not even small verbal appreciation. Um, Organizational behavior research shows that motivation increases when effort is acknowledged. Without recognition, especially in such a physically and mentally demanding job like fast food, employees are likely to feel replaceable, exhausted, and disengaged. Employees operate side by side rather than collaboratively. They complete tasks efficiently, but they don't problem solve together or communicate proactively. The job gets done, but the camaraderie does not develop. Without teamwork, employees are less likely to help each other, share ideas, or feel like they belong, which in turn increases that turnover risk with employees. What's promising is that Brahms could improve culture and performance without expensive changes. Their foundation is already strong. They just need small, people-focused shifts. Something as small as regular recognition could dramatically change morale. It could be verbal praise, like a rush hero shout out, or simply thanking someone for covering a task. Research shows that that appreciation increases motivation, effort, and retention. This opportunity requires no money, it just requires leadership intention. Introducing a quick huddle before or after shifts, would allow employees to share ideas and be heard. Right now, communication is one directional. Leaders talk and employees respond. Two-way communication builds engagement, ownership, and trust. Brahms already does the reliable thing for their customers, but they could also stand out by doing something memorable. For example, Chick-fil-A built its reputation on service behaviors, not necessarily their food quality. If Brahms incorporated warm, consistent language or signature service phrases, customers would walk away feeling valued and in turn, with that value feeling, increase loyalty. I just saw a student in the back. That was kind of funny. Sorry. Um, the weaknesses mentioned earlier can turn into real threats if ignored, especially considering how competitive the fast food market is. So when employees feel overworked and underappreciated, the burnout sets in. Burnout leads to turnover. Turnover leads to staffing shortages and rushed training, and that leads to slower services and more mistakes. Eventually, the customers, when they are on the receiving end of those mistakes, they'll stop returning. It becomes a cycle that begins with employee morale. Brahms competes against restaurants that are cheaper, restaurants that are healthier, and restaurants that are known for exceptional service. So if Brahms doesn't continue evolving its service experience, customers may choose alternatives not because of the food quality, but because of how the experience makes them feel. The solutions are intentionally low resource and high impact. They focus on motivating and supporting employees without changing the structure that already works well. Shift leaders don't need to stop giving direction, they just need to add encouragement and support. So, a small change in tone can make a big difference. Instead of correcting only what's wrong, leaders should also acknowledge what's going right. So, micro recognition could be as simple as a quick verbal praise, a quick acknowledgement, or small celebrations for handling a rush well. It requires no cost, but has a major effect on productivity, motivation, and job satisfaction. Introducing signature services and signature phrases would upgrade the customer experience with almost no training needed. A small consistency creates that brand identity that I think Brahms is looking for. Um, Customers remember how interactions make them feel more than they remember the items on the menu. I would recommend letting employees solve certain problems on their own instead of always wanting them to wait for direction. When employees feel trusted, they engage more and take more ownership in their tasks. Empowerment creates confidence and loyalty. So this slide is my um, summarization of the SWOT analysis of Brahms. So strengths show what we already know works well, like role clarity and efficient communication. Weaknesses highlight areas that can improve, especially leadership and teamwork. Opportunities suggest small changes that could greatly improve employee morale and that customer experience. Threats include burnout and competition, which could impact efficiency and long-term success. The SWOT framework really makes it clear where Brahms can leverage strengths to address weaknesses and capitalize on their opportunities. Overall, Brahms is strong in structure and efficiency, but the human side of the workplace is underdeveloped. So, investing in leadership, communication, and employee appreciation could dramatically improve customer motivation, employee motivation, excuse me, customer satisfaction, and long-term business success. So, small changes in the culture would create large improvements in performance. Looking at Brahms through the SWOT analysis makes it clear that the restaurant has strong structure, has reliable service, and has efficient operations. The biggest opportunities are in leadership, employee recognition, and customer service. Small changes here would really boost that morale, motivation, and customer experience. Overall, organizational behavior isn't just theory. It's what makes work run smoothly or struggle. Focusing on people as well as processes could turn Brahms from good to exceptional in a competitive market like fast food. And these are my two references. I used our textbook and then one other textbook. And that is my end of my presentation. Thank you so much.